Hi, I'm Kai at Jazz, and this is going to be the first video in my World of Warcraft Legion Hype series. And this one's going to be a relatively short one, because there's only really a few points that I'd really like to discuss. And I'd have to say that this is the weirdest beginning of a hype train that I've ever seen in my life, much less dreamed I'd be creating, because today the subject I'd like to address is Thrall dying in the next expansion. From the comments made during the announcement of Legion, it would definitely seem to apply? Yeah, not apply, you're not applying for a job. Imply that Thrall is going to be killed off, and just, I'm not quite sure how to feel about that. I actually happen to like Thrall as a character. And I like Thrall because he never seemed to lose his head with the whole war efforts against the Alliance thing. He never really wanted to fight the Alliance because he realized, hey, it seems like every, 2 months some new horrible danger opens up and is trying to beat our world to a pulp. Do we really need to fight right now? Is this really an intelligent option? Can't we just, not go into an open, war as the insert bad guy, whether it be a undead legion or a giant dragon, or perhaps, I don't know, a wave of demons are trying to invade us. Perhaps we can get along. So I've always appreciated his even-headedness and his balanced look at the Horde and Alliance, because he's seen the Alliance at its best and at its worst. He doesn't really categorize between orcs and humans as much as other orcs or even other members of the Horde do, and I really appreciate that character aspect, and it was very, very interesting to me because, stereotypically the orcs are these crude kind of I orc, you not orc, you die, or you orc that's stupider than me. But when it comes to that idea and usual fantasy kind of scheme, Thrall was a complete departure from that very rapidly, because honestly I think Thrall is more of a human than most humans. Just very deep, very interesting character. I'm not going to go into his lore right now because that would push this video far beyond the time frame in which I want to. Perhaps I'll save that for another video and give a quick rundown of the story of Thrall. I do have to admit that in the Cataclysm, I kinda lost some interest in his character because I really liked him as the even-headed leader of the Horde, who was not exactly appreciated by every member of the Horde, but overall had the Horde's best interest in mind. And when he became this kind of, shaman-y in this weird-looking outfit figure standing on the precipice of a giant whirlpool just trying to stop the elements from cracking apart, it just didn't really have the same feeling. It didn't really feel like the same Thrall to me, so I really, really lost my interest, and I kind of regained it a bit in Draenor, because you had Thrall being Thrall again, he being more than just someone sitting there trying to keep the elements from going crack. He did more than just kind of stand on a mountain. He had a more interesting story. I do have to admit that I've always kind of liked the love story between him and his now wife, and I am appreciative of the fact he now has 2 children. But that brings me to the point at hand. Is now a good time for Thrall to die? And keep in mind that no one's definitely said he dies not. He dies not? He dies or not. But the fact is, we get his hammer, the Doom Hammer, as our weapon, and unless they're hauling the other Doom Hammer from Draenor, which I seriously doubt Blizzard would do, considering prior comments that I vaguely remember about not wanting to complicate with time travel and all that jazz, it's from the way the Blizzard devs were talking about how we get the artifact weapons for our heroes. them being from either characters who have lost the will to fight or characters who have died, I definitely feel that's more of a hint towards Thrall dying, because he just doesn't seem like the person who'd say, we can't win. It's demons. We're gonna die. I mean, he was first in line to stop the world from cracking apart when Deathwing showed up. I don't think that his character, I don't think Blizzard would soil the character by having him, of all people, just kind of throw in a tower. Yes, he's going to throw a tower at the Legion and just rage quit and give up and go sit in the corner. I don't think that's likely. And as an author, I would have to say, it would be a very, very interesting, very powerful plot device to have him die, because it's just like, things got real. I mean, they killed Thrall, things got real. Like, if we actually have real casualties done in a very proper, very last stand way, it would intensify the emotional investment. You see, when it comes to how good an expansion story is, I do have to say that the emotional investment is absolutely key. For example, I was absolutely in love with Wrath of the Lich King because I rerolled a Death Knight, and that became my main, and I fell in love with the Death Knight story. I felt like I had a personal vendetta against the Lich King. He turned me into an undead servant of his to go slaughter the innocents. Now I'm free, and I'm coming after him to take him out and stop his evil and stop him from doing that to anybody else. So I had this vendetta, I had this purpose, I had this reason that connected me into the story, and it gave me that kind of, oh look, there's the Lich King, whenever I'd see him pop up in a quest. Because, in the Northern expansion, the Lich King did make a lot of appearances. Like, when the troll was on top of the keep and you know what I mean. So, if Thrall dies, especially people who play Horde, they're going to have a good vendetta, a good reason that's really going to connect their hearts and minds into the story of coming after the Burning Legion, beating them back, and not just beating them back, but taking them out, giving them heck for what they've done. So I feel that if Thrall does die, it's going to be a very interesting seasoning for the expansion, something to really amp up the volume. I have confidence that he'd probably die in a very, very epic way. If he doesn't, that would be a great disappointment, and because there is so much riding on this gamble, you are sacrificing a very, very important character to the story thus far, especially one you spent kind of showing off a bit in Draenor. I definitely feel that Blizzard will make a good effort for however Thrall dies, which will probably be in the pre-expansion event. It seems to be hinted that. I don't English well. I'm sorry. It seems to have been hinted that he'll probably end up dying in the pre-launch event. And if he does end up dying, I feel he'll die in a very useful way to the story, which honestly, if you're going to kill off a character, is the only good way to kill them off in a useful way. I feel it would enhance the story, it would give a vivandiver to the players, and it would overall just kind of make the story more potent. So I do feel that the likelihood between the hints and all the benefit that Thrall's death would be to the developing of the plot, not just the developing of the plot, but the kicking off of the plot, between all of that, I do feel it is a good chance that he will die. Otherwise, he'd just kind of fall into a comatose state or something like that. And he's leaving behind a wife and 2 children, and honestly, if Thrall dies, it gives his wife a good chance to be brought into the Starf, so she can be involved in the Starf, and she can show off her shamanistic coolness, and, I mean, doesn't Blizzard want to develop more female characters? Isn't that what Ural was all about? So we can see her really coming to shine. He has 2 kids, so at least he has a legacy going. I feel if Thrall dies now, it would be a very appropriate, very powerful time for him to die. And that's pretty much all my thoughts on the matter. It just seems like a very practical time to kill off the character. And this is coming from someone, the only characters I've ever really killed off in my story are characters that I premeditatedly make. Okay, this person's gonna die. Don't get attached to them, they're gonna die. Or I just kill off the jerk to make the fans happy. That's usually the only time I end up killing a character, and even I'm in the circumstance weighing the pros and cons. And as far as everything goes, the cons are actually pros, because the cons is, oh look, Thrall dies. Well, that's a pro, because if Thrall dies, then we have a reason to really get amped up to go kill the demons. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it.